The afternoon sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Bennett penthouse should have felt warm, but Sophia Bennett only registered it as too bright, too sharp, the kind of light that signaled what was coming. She was 8 months pregnant, her belly swollen and heavy with the daughter she'd tried for 6 years to conceive. 6 years of fertility treatments, hormone injections, and monthly disappointments that Derek had blamed entirely on her body's failures. 6 years of his mother Catherine's pointed comments about suitable women who could produce heirs without all this medical drama. And now, alone in the 4,000-square-foot penthouse at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, Sophia felt the familiar aura creeping over her, the warning her neurologist had told her to never ignore. Metallic taste. Visual distortion. Tingling in her left hand. Epilepsy had been her companion since age 16, controlled beautifully with medication until pregnancy had complicated everything. Her dosage had been reduced to protect the baby, and Dr. Chen had warned her, if you feel a seizure coming, you call 911 immediately. At 8 months, a grand mal seizure could trigger premature labor or placental abruption. Minutes matter, Sophia. Her phone sat on the marble kitchen counter, 15 feet away. The distance felt impossible as her vision began to blur at the edges, as her left hand started trembling uncontrollably. Move. Now. She lunged forward, her pregnant belly throwing off her balance. Her hip crashed into the dining table's edge, sending a crystal vase shattering across the hardwood floor. The sound was distant, muffled, as if her ears were filling with cotton. 10 feet. 5 feet. Her fingers closed around the phone just as her right leg gave out. She collapsed beside the kitchen island, her back against the cabinet, phone clutched in trembling hands. The screen swam before her eyes. She fumbled for the emergency call function, her fingers thick and clumsy. 911, what is your emergency? Her thumbs moved across the keyboard, each letter requiring immense concentration. Seizing. Adamo pregnant. 2750, Riverside Drive Penthouse 4. Need ambulance. Her finger hovered over send as the first convulsion hit. Her body arched backward, skull cracking against the cabinet with sickening force. The phone flew from her hand, skittering 3 feet across the floor, the unsent message still displayed on its screen. Sophia's world dissolved into chaos, muscles seizing, jaw clenched so tight she felt a tooth crack, the baby inside her going suddenly, terrifyingly still. Please. Please, someone find me. Please. Darkness swallowed everything. Derek's discovery. Derek Bennett pulled into the penthouse building's private garage at 2:47 p.m., earlier than planned. Vanessa's birthday party didn't start until 6, but he'd told Sophia he had client meetings all day to avoid questions about why he was coming home to shower and change into the Tom Ford tuxedo hanging in his car. 26-year-old Vanessa Price had been his secret for 11 months, longer than he'd managed to hide any previous affair. Something about her youth, her undemanding adoration, her complete lack of Sophia's anxious neediness made her perfect. And tonight, at her birthday party at the Riverside Plaza, he planned to solidify their arrangement with a very expensive bracelet and a promise that once the baby came, once Sophia was distracted with motherhood, their time together could be more open. The elevator rose silently to the penthouse level. Derek checked his reflection in the mirrored walls, still handsome at 35, still fit despite the stress of managing Bennett Development's expansion. Still the catch. Sophia had been lucky to land 7 years ago, back when she'd had that quiet intelligence he'd found appealing and her father's business connections he'd found essential. Gerald Morrison had been a modest living researcher, or so Derek had thought when he'd courted Sophia. Only after the wedding had Derek discovered the man's stubbornness about keeping wealth private extended to hiding a supposedly comfortable retirement fund that Derek had never been able to access or leverage. When Gerald had died 6 months ago, sudden heart attack, devastatingly quick, Derek had expected at least a decent inheritance. Instead, a generic funeral, a small life insurance policy split between Sophia and some charities, and that was it. No real estate portfolio, no stock windfall, nothing that made 7 years of marriage to a neurotic, high-maintenance woman worthwhile. He unlocked the penthouse door and stepped inside. The first thing he noticed was the smell, sharp, acrid, wrong. The second was the shattered vase, crystal fragments glittering across the dining room floor like accusations. "Sophia?" His voice carried irritation rather than concern. "What the hell did you break now?" Silence. Derek walked further into the penthouse, his Italian loafers crunching on glass. The living room was empty, afternoon sun illuminating dust motes floating in still air. Then he saw her. Sophia lay beside the kitchen island, her body contorted at an unnatural angle, her face turned toward him but her eyes rolled back, showing only whites. A thin line of blood trickled from her nose. Her pregnant belly rose and fell in shallow, irregular breaths. And on the floor, 3 feet from her outstretched hand, her phone screen glowed with an unsent message. 911. What is your emergency? Seizing. 8mo pregnant. 2750, Riverside Drive, penthouse 4. Need ambulance. Derek's first thought was, she's faking. His second was, this will ruin everything. His third, the one that crystallized into decision, if I call 911 now, they'll ask why I didn't call sooner. They'll ask why she was alone. They'll ask questions that will delay me getting to Vanessa's party. He stared at his wife's unconscious form for exactly 7 seconds. Then Derek picked up her phone. He looked at the unsent message, thumb hovering over the screen. Around him, the penthouse was silent except for Sophia's labored breathing and the distant hum of traffic 17 floors below. She's probably fine. She's had seizures before. She always recovers. The thought felt thin, unconvincing even to himself. But Vanessa's party started in 3 hours. The bracelet was already wrapped and sitting in his car. If he called 911 now, he'd spend the evening in a hospital waiting room answering questions from doctors and possibly police about why his 8 months pregnant wife had been home alone during a medical emergency. Catherine, his mother, had already warned him about optics after Sophia's father died. People are watching, she'd said in her clipped, society matron voice. A widowed, pregnant daughter-in-law reflects poorly on the family if she's not properly supervised. This is Sophia's fault, Derek thought, anger replacing the brief flicker of concern. She should have called me before texting 911. She should have told me she felt a seizure coming. He pressed delete on the unsent message. The text vanished from the screen as if it had never existed. Derek pocketed Sophia's phone, couldn't risk her waking up and trying again, and took one last look at her crumpled form. Her face had gone gray pale, and there was something dark spreading on the floor beneath her, but the lighting was dim enough that he could convince himself it was just shadow. She'll be fine until I get back. The seizure will pass. She always recovers. He grabbed his garment bag from the front closet, took one step toward the door, then paused. What if she's not fine? What if something happens and I could have prevented it? The thought lasted exactly 2 seconds before Derek crushed it. If something happened, he'd say he'd been at client meetings all day as planned. He'd been unreachable. There was no way to connect him to being home at 2:47 p.m. when his wife had her medical emergency. No one would ever know he deleted her cry for help. Derek Bennett walked out of the penthouse, locked the door behind him, and drove to the Riverside Plaza to shower and dress for his mistress's birthday party. Behind him, Sophia lay on the kitchen floor, her phone gone, her baby's movements growing weaker with each passing minute. The neighbors discovered Mrs. Eleanor Chin had lived in penthouse 3 for 42 years, long enough to remember when the Riverside Towers were the newest, most exclusive buildings in the city and long enough to develop very particular opinions about her neighbors. The Bennetts in penthouse 4 had always struck her as odd. The husband was charming in that too-smooth way that reminded Eleanor of her late husband's business partner, the one who'd eventually been indicted for fraud. The wife was quiet, nervous, always apologizing for things that didn't require apology. Eleanor had watched Sophia's pregnancy progress with the experienced eye of a woman who'd raised 4 children and helped deliver 2 grandchildren during home emergencies. She'd noticed how Derek was never home, how Sophia had stopped attending building social events, how the young woman's face had grown drawn and anxious as her belly had swelled. That girl is isolated, Eleanor had thought more than once. And that man is trouble. So when Eleanor stepped into the hallway at 3:15 p.m., heading to her weekly mahjong game on the 12th floor, and heard a strange thump coming from penthouse 4, her first instinct was concern rather than annoyance. She pressed her ear to the Bennett's door. Silence. Then another thump, weaker this time, like something heavy shifting against the floor. "Sophia?" Eleanor called, knocking firmly. "Sophia, dear, are you all right?" No response. Eleanor had lived long enough to trust her instincts. Something was wrong. She pulled out her phone and called building security. "This is Eleanor Chin in penthouse 3. I need someone to open penthouse 4 immediately. I believe Mrs. Bennett may be in medical distress." "Mrs. Chin, we can't just, now, Thomas. Or I'm calling 911 and telling them you refuse to check on a pregnant woman in distress." 60 seconds later, Thomas the security guard arrived with his master key, looking nervous. "Mrs. Chen, if Mr. Bennett complains about this, then I'll take full responsibility. Open it." The door swung inward. Eleanor saw the shattered vase first, then the blood trail leading around the kitchen island. Then she saw Sophia. The young woman lay in a pool of fluid that Eleanor's experienced eye immediately recognized as amniotic. Her water had broken during the seizure. Sophia's face was gray-white, her lips blue-tinged, her pregnant belly ominously still. "Call 911. Eleanor barked at Thomas, already moving toward Sophia. "Tell them 8 months pregnant woman, post-seizure, possible placental abruption. Move." Eleanor knelt beside Sophia with surprising agility for her 78 years, pressing 2 fingers to the younger woman's neck. The pulse was there but weak, thread, wrong. "Sophia, honey, can you hear me?" Eleanor patted her cheek gently. "Help is coming. Stay with me." Sophia's eyes flickered open, unfocused and terrified. Her lips moved but no sound emerged. "Don't try to talk. Save your strength for the baby." In the distance, sirens began to wail. Eleanor looked around the pristine penthouse, the expensive furniture, the designer touches, the complete absence of any sign that someone had been home when Sophia collapsed. Where the hell is her husband? She spotted Sophia's purse on the hall table and rifled through it quickly. No phone. She checked the kitchen counter, the coffee table, the side tables. No phone anywhere. He took it, Eleanor realized with cold certainty. He was here, and he took her phone. The paramedics burst through the door 6 minutes later. 8 months pregnant, grand mal seizure, water broken, possible placental abruption, Eleanor rattled off with the precision of someone who'd been a labor and delivery nurse before retirement. Pulse is weak, 58 BPM. She's been post-ICT-AL for at least 30 minutes, possibly longer. And gentlemen, she fixed them with a steel gaze. Someone needs to find her husband and ask him why his pregnant wife was alone during a medical emergency. As they loaded Sophia onto the stretcher, Eleanor spotted something on the floor near the kitchen island, a single drop of blood that had smeared slightly, as if someone had stepped in it. Men's shoe print. Size 11, Italian leather tread pattern. Derek Bennett wore size 11 Italian loafers. Eleanor took a photo with her phone before the paramedics rushed Sophia out. She had a feeling it was going to matter. The Riverside Plaza ballroom glittered with the same careless elegance it had held 3 months earlier during Vanessa's birthday party, the party Derek had attended while Sophia bled on their kitchen floor. Tonight was supposed to be even more special. Derek had reserved the entire rooftop ballroom for what he'd advertised as a celebration dinner with close friends and business associates. 60 guests, colleagues from Bennett Development, society friends, a handful of family members including Derek's mother Catherine, and of course Vanessa, radiant in champagne silk, her left ring finger conspicuously bare but expectant. Derek stood near the champagne fountain in a custom tuxedo, accepting congratulations on his recovered wife and beautiful daughter while internally calculating how quickly he could finalize his divorce once this engagement made his intentions public. Sophia had been manageable these past months. Compliant. Grateful. Exactly the broken, dependent wife he'd needed her to be while he transitioned his life toward Vanessa. The marriage counseling had been tedious but useful for optics. Dr. Warren kept saying they were making progress. Derek had signed off on continuing joint assets, assuming Sophia had nothing of her own anyway. And Sophia hadn't contested anything. Hadn't asked difficult questions. Hadn't pushed back when Derek suggested they take a break from living together while they worked on their marriage. Perfect. Tonight, he'd propose to Vanessa. Tomorrow, he'd tell Sophia he wanted an amicable divorce. She'd get reasonable custody and alimony, he'd keep the penthouse and business assets, and everyone would move forward. Simple. Clean. Civilized. Derek. Vanessa appeared at his elbow, her eyes bright with champagne and anticipation. Everyone's here. Are you ready? Derek checked his watch, 7:55 p.m. The champagne toast was scheduled for 8 p.m., followed by his surprise announcement. Almost. The ballroom doors opened. Every head turned. And Sophia Bennett walked in. The entrance Sophia had spent 2 hours preparing for this moment with a team Margaret had assembled, hairstylist, makeup artist, wardrobe consultant, and Eleanor Chen, who'd insisted on supervising every detail. The result was a woman Derek Bennett didn't recognize. Gone was the soft, anxious wife in clearance rack dresses and apologetic posture. Gone was the exhausted new mother in practical flats and messy hair. The woman crossing the ballroom floor in 4-inch Louboutin heels wore a midnight blue dress that had cost $8,000, silk that skimmed her now 35 pounds lighter figure, final weight, 130 pounds. Just 5 pounds above her pre-pregnancy goal, with devastating elegance. Her dark hair fell in waves around her face, professionally styled, highlighted with subtle copper that caught the light. Her makeup was flawless, smoky eyes that made her look dangerous instead of tired, lips in classic red, skin that glowed with health instead of pallor. Around her neck, a sapphire pendant that had belonged to her grandmother, retrieved from the trust's safe deposit box, appraised value, $180,000. On her wrist, a vintage Cartier watch that had belonged to her father, retrieved from the trust, appraised value, $95,000. She looked expensive. Powerful. Untouchable. And she was flanked by an entourage that made Derek's stomach drop. Margaret Harrison, estate attorney, sharply professional in black, Detective Maria Gonzalez, in civilian clothes but unmistakably law enforcement, Dr. Patricia Warren, the marriage counselor, carrying a leather folder, Eleanor Chen, looking like a proud grandmother in elegant silver, behind them, 2 security personnel carrying equipment cases and a large portable screen. The ballroom fell silent except for the soft jazz quartet, who stumbled to a halt mid-song. Sophia's heels clicked against marble with the rhythm of a countdown. Click. 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 She stopped 10 feet from Derek and Vanessa, her expression serene but her eyes absolutely cold. Hello, Derek. Her voice carried across the ballroom, steady, clear, no tremor of anxiety or apology. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Derek found his voice through shock. Sophia. What are you? This is a private event, is it? Sophia's gaze swept the room. How strange. I received an invitation. She pulled a cream envelope from her clutch. Well, not exactly an invitation. More of a notification from the Riverside Plaza event management that my husband, still my legal husband, was hosting a significant event at the venue I technically own. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Own? Vanessa's voice was sharp. Derek, what is she talking about? Sophia smiled, the expression didn't reach her eyes. I'll get to that. But first, she turned to the assembled guests. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. I promise this will be worth your time. She nodded to the security personnel, who began setting up the portable screen and projector with practiced efficiency. Derek stepped forward, his face flushing. Sophia, this is ridiculous. You're clearly still recovering from your medical trauma. Let me have someone escort you. Sit down, Derek. The command was quiet but absolute. Derek stopped mid-step, shocked into compliance by the steel in his wife's voice. Thank you, Sophia continued. Now, I know you all came here tonight expecting a celebration. And you'll get one, just not the celebration Derek planned. You see, 3 months ago, I nearly died during a medical emergency while 8 months pregnant. My daughter was born premature and not breathing. And tonight, you're all going to learn exactly why that happened. The room was frozen. Catherine Bennett, Derek's mother, stood abruptly from her table. How dare you crash your husband's business dinner with these accusations, Mother Bennett, please sit. Sophia's tone was patient. I have evidence for everything I'm about to reveal. You'll want to see it before you defend him. Margaret stepped forward, opened her briefcase on a nearby table, and extracted the first folder. Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret announced professionally, my name is Margaret Harrison, estate attorney. I represent Mrs. Sophia Morrison Bennett in matters pertaining to medical neglect, financial fraud, and divorce proceedings. What you're about to witness is a comprehensive presentation of evidence that has been provided to law enforcement, county prosecutors, and will be filed with family court on Monday morning. The portable screen flickered to life, displaying a title slide, Bennett v. Bennett, Timeline of Abandonment. Sophia walked to the screen, picked up a wireless presenter, and clicked to the next slide. Let's begin with what happened 3 months ago, she said. And then we'll discuss why you're all here tonight. Revelation number 1, the deleted 911 call. The screen displayed cell phone records, clinical, undeniable. Thursday, date, 2:33 p.m. Sophia's iPhone XR text message drafted to 911 emergency services. Message content, seizing. Adamo pregnant. 2750, Riverside Drive, penthouse 4. Need ambulance. Status, deleted before sending. Deletion timestamp, 2:47 p.m. Device location, inside penthouse 4, Riverside Towers. 3 months ago, I felt a grand mal seizure coming, Sophia narrated calmly. I had about 5 minutes of warning, standard for my epilepsy. I grabbed my phone and typed this message to 911. She clicked. The screen showed a larger version of the text, every word visible. I was holding my phone, my thumb over the send button, when the seizure hit. I dropped the phone. It landed 3 feet away from where I collapsed. Click. Crime scene photo showing the kitchen floor, a small chalk circle where the phone should have been. When I was found 30 minutes later by my neighbor Eleanor Chin, my phone was gone. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Phones came out, guests recording, texting, posting. At 2:47 p.m., someone picked up that phone and deleted the unsent message. Sophia's voice hardened. 14 minutes after I collapsed. 14 minutes before calling for help might have saved my daughter from oxygen deprivation. Derek stood frozen, his face draining of color. That's speculation, he managed. You don't have proof anyone deleted. Actually, we do. Margaret stepped forward with another document. Apple's iCloud forensics team was very helpful. Deleted text messages leave metadata traces on Apple's servers. This message was actively deleted by a user who unlocked the phone with the correct passcode, a passcode only 2 people knew. Sophia, who was unconscious at the time, and Derek, who claims he wasn't home. The screen changed to show cell tower data. Derek Bennett's iPhone location history 2:11 p.m., Riverside Towers, penthouse level Wi-Fi connection, 2:38 p.m., Riverside Towers parking garage 2:47 p.m., message deletion timestamp on Sophia's phone 2:49 p.m., Morrison Bridge, route to Riverside Plaza, not route from Bennett Development offices. You were home, Sophia said quietly, looking directly at Derek. You saw me unconscious. You took my phone. You deleted my call for help. And then you left me to go to a party. The ballroom exploded with noise, gasps, shouts, chairs scraping as people stood. I didn't, Derek's rehearsed composure shattered. I stopped home briefly. I didn't see her, she must have been in another room. I was on the kitchen floor, Sophia said. In a pool of amniotic fluid because my water had broken during the seizure. There's no way you didn't see me. She clicked to the next slide, a photo of the kitchen taken by Eleanor Chin before paramedics arrived. The blood. The fluid. the shattered vase. Women in the audience covered their mouths. Men shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa had gone pale, her champagne glass forgotten in her hand. Why would I leave her if I saw her? Derek demanded, grasping for any explanation. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense, Sophia said. When you understand the motive. Revelation number 2, the affair timeline. The screen changed to show surveillance photos, Derek and Vanessa at restaurants, entering hotels, embracing in parking garages. This is Vanessa Price, Sophia said, her tone conversational as if discussing the weather. 26 years old. Real estate agent. Derek's mistress for the past 14 months. Vanessa made a strangled sound. The affair began in June of last year, Sophia continued, clicking through time-stamped photos. 1 month after I learned I was finally pregnant after 6 years of fertility treatments. Derek's interest in our marriage ended the moment I was no longer convenient. More photos, Derek and Vanessa at the theater, at wine tastings, at romantic weekend getaways. But here's what's interesting, Sophia said. The affair itself isn't the motive. Plenty of men have affairs without resorting to medical neglect. No, the motive becomes clear when we look at what Derek did that specific day. The screen showed a party scene, the rooftop of this very ballroom, decorated in pink and gold. August 15th, Vanessa's 26th birthday party. Sophia's voice went colder. Held at the Riverside Plaza from 6 p.m. to midnight. Derek was photographed arriving at 6:45 p.m. Click. Photos of Derek at the party, champagne in hand, laughing. At 6:45 p.m., Derek was toasting Vanessa's birthday with $340 worth of champagne, charged to our joint credit card. Click. Receipt displayed on screen. At 6:45 p.m., I was in intensive care, intubated and comatose, having just delivered our daughter via emergency birth in an ambulance. The timeline appeared on screen, both events listed side by side. 6:45 p.m. Sophia, intubated in ICU, medically induced coma. 6:45 p.m. Derek, at party, purchasing champagne. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Hospital administration made 12 calls to Derek's phone between 4:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., Sophia continued relentlessly. 12 calls about his critically ill wife and newborn daughter. He answered none of them. I didn't hear my phone, Derek started. You heard it, Sophia interrupted. You silenced it. Because attending your mistress's birthday party was more important than finding out if your wife and daughter were alive. She turned to Vanessa, her expression almost pitying. Vanessa, I want you to understand something. While you were opening the $15,000 Cartier bracelet Derek bought you, also charged to our joint card, my daughter was fighting for her life in NICU. You're not the villain here. You're another victim of Derek's pathological selfishness. Vanessa's face crumpled. She looked at Derek with dawning horror. You said your wife knew about us. You said she was fine with it. She knew nothing, Sophia said firmly. Just like you knew nothing about the life insurance policy. Revelation number 3, the life insurance policy. The screen changed to show an insurance policy document, official, damning. Metropolitan Life Insurance Company policy holder, Derek Bennett insured, Sophia Morrison Bennett benefit amount, $2 million, for $1 million if death results from childbirth complications related to pre-existing conditions. Policy date, February 14, 6 months before Sophia's seizure. The room went absolutely silent. Derek took out a $2 million life insurance policy on me 6 months into my pregnancy, Sophia said, her voice cutting like glass. The policy doubles to $4 million if I die from childbirth complications related to my pre-existing epilepsy. She let that sink in. Now, let's return to the timeline. At 2:47 p.m., Derek deleted my 911 text and left our penthouse. At 3:15 p.m., 28 minutes later, my neighbor Eleanorchen found me and called for help. I was in active premature labor triggered by the seizure. The paramedics' report states that if I'd been found even 10 minutes later, I likely would have died from oxygen deprivation or hemorrhage. Sophia turned to face Derek directly, her voice dropping to something quiet and deadly. You waited, didn't you? You stood in that penthouse, looked at me dying on the floor, and calculated how long you could delay calling 911 before it looked suspicious. You were waiting to see if I'd die naturally before you had to make a decision. That's insane. Derek shouted. I would never. Then why did you throw my phone in the river? Sophia's question was razor-sharp. Cell tower data shows your phone pinged from the Morrison Bridge at 2:49 p.m., 2 minutes after you deleted my 911 text. My phone's signal disappeared at that exact location. You drove directly from our penthouse to the bridge, destroyed the only evidence of my emergency, and then continued to your mistress's party. The screen showed a map, Riverside Towers to Morrison Bridge to Riverside Plaza. The route highlighted in red. That's the route you took, Sophia said. Not the route from your office downtown where you claimed to be. The route from our home to the river to the party. You disposed of evidence before attending a celebration. Derek's mother stood, her face white with shock. Derek. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't, Mother. She's twisting everything. I made mistakes, yes, but I never wanted anyone to die. You took out a $4 million policy on my life and then delayed calling for help when I was dying, Sophia said flatly. Insurance fraud investigators call that suspicious timing. Homicide detectives call it motive. Detective Gonzalez stepped forward, her badge now visible. Mr. Bennett, you're not under criminal investigation at this time. But you should know that everything presented here tonight has been forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. They're particularly interested in the life insurance policy and the timeline discrepancies. Derek looked around wildly, at the crowd recording everything, at his mother's horrified face, at Vanessa backing away from him like he was radioactive. This is a witch hunt, he said desperately. Sophia's traumatized. She's not thinking clearly, actually. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 7 years, Sophia said. Which brings me to the next revelation. Revelation number 4, the penthouse fraud. The screen changed to show property deeds, official county records. Riverside Towers Penthouse 4 true owner, Sophia Morrison Bennett, via Morrison Family Trust, purchased, 2016, 1 year before marriage, purchase price, $6. $8 million current value, $8. 2 million confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Derek has been telling everyone he bought our penthouse, Sophia said. He's been making mortgage payments for 7 years. He's listed it as his primary asset in business loan applications. She smiled coldly. But Derek never bought the penthouse. I did. Or rather, my father's trust did, 1 year before Derek and I met. The screen showed the true ownership structure, shell companies leading back to the Morrison Family Trust, with Sophia as sole beneficiary. My father was a financial asset protection specialist, Sophia continued. He structured the purchase so Derek would never know who truly owned the property. Derek signed what he thought was a mortgage with a lending institution. In reality, his mortgage payments have been going into an escrow account that accrued interest in my name. He's been paying me rent for 7 years without knowing it. Catherine Bennett made a choking sound. That's impossible, Derek said, his voice rising. I have the deed. My name is on. You have a counterfeit deed my father created to make you feel secure, Sophia interrupted. The real deed was filed with county records in 2016. It's public record, Derek. Anyone can look it up. You've been living in my property this entire time. She clicked to the next slide, a comprehensive list of Derek's assets. In fact, let's review everything Derek thinks he owns: the penthouse, mine, purchased by Morrison Trust 2016, the Audi Q7, leased under Morrison Trust subsidiary, I'm the guarantor, Bennett Development Startup Capital, $800,000 from Morrison Trust disguised as investor funding business line of credit, secured against penthouse equity, my equity, joint investment accounts, seeded with $150,000 from Morrison Trust, my money. Derek was shaking. This is a lie. Your father was a research scientist. He lived in a rental apartment. He drove a 15-year-old Honda, Because he understood that visible wealth attracts predators, Sophia said quietly. He hid his assets to protect me from men exactly like you, men who marry for financial gain and social climbing. She clicked to the next slide, a photo of her father, Gerald Morrison, younger, standing in front of an office building with a sign, Morrison Asset Protection International. My father spent 35 years helping wealthy individuals hide assets from corrupt governments, criminal enterprises, and exploitative family members. He was brilliant at it. And he used every skill he had to protect me from you. The screen changed to show the Morrison family trust structure, complex, professional, unbreakable. Morrison Family Trust total assets, $127,300,000. The number hung on the screen like a bomb. The ballroom exploded. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Phones flashed as every guest simultaneously tried to photograph the screen. Derek stood frozen, the color completely drained from his face. Vanessa stumbled backward, hand over her mouth. Catherine Bennett sat down hard, her practiced society composure shattered. $127 million, Sophia repeated calmly. That's what my father left me in a trust one didn't know existed until 3 months ago, when I nearly died and finally opened the letter he'd left for emergencies. She turned to Derek, her voice soft but merciless. You threw away a woman worth $127 million because you thought she was powerless. You tried to let her die for $4 million when she was already worth 30 times that. You're not just cruel, Derek. You're catastrophically stupid. Revelation number 5, the marriage counseling evidence. Dr. Patricia Warren stepped forward, her professional demeanor commanding attention. Good evening, she said. I'm Dr. Patricia Warren, forensic psychologist. For the past 2 months, I've been providing marriage counseling to Derek and Sophia Bennett. What Mr. Bennett doesn't know is that I specialize in documenting abusive patterns for custody proceedings. Derek's face went from white to gray. Every session has been recorded with Mrs. Bennett's consent, which is legal in this state with one-party consent laws. Every conversation has been transcribed and analyzed. Dr. Warren opened her leather folder. In 6 two-hour sessions, I documented 47 instances of blame shifting, Derek claiming Sophia was responsible for his reactions, 23 instances of gaslighting, Derek denying events Sophia clearly remembered, 18 instances of minimization, Derek dismissing Sophia's legitimate concerns, 12 instances of emotional manipulation, Derek threatening to end therapy when challenged, 9 instances of financial control, Derek insisting Sophia didn't understand complex finances, 6 instances of threatening abandonment, Derek suggesting he'd leave if Sophia didn't comply. The screen showed sample transcripts, Derek's words in his own voice, damning and undeniable. Session 3 transcript excerpt, Derek, if you hadn't been so needy about your medical issues, I wouldn't have felt so trapped. Dr. Warren, are you saying your wife's epilepsy is responsible for your choice to have an affair? Derek, I'm saying she made it impossible to breathe in our marriage. Session 5 transcript excerpt, Derek, the seizure wasn't my fault. She should have called me earlier. Dr. Warren, she tried to call 911. Her phone disappeared. Derek, well, she must have misplaced it before the seizure. Dr. Warren, cell records show it was in the penthouse at 2:47 p.m. Derek, I don't remember exactly when I left that day. Mr. Bennett's statements during therapy established a clear pattern, Dr. Warren concluded. He refuses to accept responsibility for his actions. He consistently blames his wife for circumstances beyond her control. And most concerning, he shows no genuine remorse for the harm caused by his neglect. She closed her folder. In my professional opinion, Derek Bennett poses a significant risk to his wife and daughter's well-being. I've recommended supervised visitation only and have filed my report with family court. Derek finally found his voice. You can't use therapy sessions against me. That's confidential, one-party consent recording, Dr. Warren said calmly. Mrs. Bennett was fully informed that sessions were being documented for potential custody proceedings. You signed a consent form acknowledging this possibility in our first session, you just didn't read it before signing. Margaret stepped forward with a document. The form you signed, Derek. Your signature is right here under the clause stating, I understand that session recordings may be used in legal proceedings if deemed necessary for child welfare. Derek stared at the signature, definitely is, scrawled carelessly like he'd signed hundreds of business documents without reading them. You set me up, he breathed. This whole thing was a setup, this whole thing was documentation, Sophia corrected. I gave you every opportunity to show genuine remorse, to acknowledge what you did, to prioritize our daughter's well-being. Instead, you spent 6 sessions blaming me for your choices. You did this to yourself. Revelation number 6, Vanessa's cooperation. Sophia turned to Vanessa, who stood frozen near the champagne fountain, mascara beginning to run. Vanessa, Sophia said gently. I'm not angry with you. You're 26 years old, and you trusted a man who lied to both of us. But I need you to tell everyone here what you told me last week. Vanessa looked at Derek, then at Sophia, then at the crowd of phones recording everything. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know any of this. I believe you, Sophia said. Now tell them what Derek told you about his marriage. Vanessa's voice was barely audible. He said his wife was cold. That she'd lost interest in their marriage. That they'd agreed to separate but were keeping up appearances until after the baby came. Did he tell you I had epilepsy? No. Did he tell you I was high-risk pregnant? No. Did he tell you why he was late to your birthday party? Vanessa shook her head, tears flowing freely now. He said he was stuck in meetings. He texted me at 2:30 saying he'd been delayed. I thought, her voice broke. I thought he meant his work meetings ran long. I didn't know his wife was dying. When did you learn the truth? When the police interviewed me 2 months ago. They showed me the timeline. They showed me that Derek had been at home when you had the seizure. That he'd left you to come to my party. Vanessa looked at Derek with pure betrayal. You let me think I was special. You let me think you chose me. But you were just running from responsibility. Van, listen, Derek started toward her. Don't. Vanessa stepped back. I came here tonight because your lawyer called me last week. She asked if I'd be willing to provide testimony about your character. I said yes. She pulled an envelope from her clutch. This is a sworn affidavit detailing our relationship, the lies you told me, the credit card statements showing you spent marital assets on me, and most importantly, a recording of a conversation we had last month. Margaret took the envelope. Would you like me to play the recording, or would you prefer to summarize? Play it, Vanessa said, her voice hardening. Everyone should hear what he really thinks. The screen went black, then displayed an audio waveform. Derek's voice filled the ballroom. Derek, recorded once the divorce is final, we can be completely open. Sophia will get reasonable custody, every other weekend maybe, and I'll keep the penthouse and business assets. She doesn't understand finance anyway. Vanessa, recorded what about your daughter? Don't you want more custody than weekends? Derek, recorded honestly. Babies are exhausting. Sophia's better suited for that phase. I'll be more involved when Grace is older and actually interesting. The recording ended. The ballroom was silent except for shocked breathing. Derek looked around wildly. That's out of context, the full recording is 12 minutes, Margaret said. It includes you discussing how you plan to hide assets from Sophia during divorce, how you'd already consulted lawyers about minimizing child support, and how you'd convinced yourself that the seizure was just bad timing rather than something you could have prevented. She held up the affidavit. Vanessa's testimony, combined with Dr. Warren's psychological evaluation, establishes a pattern of parental disinterest and financial manipulation. The family court judge will be very interested in a father who describes spending time with his infant daughter as exhausting and not interesting. Vanessa was crying openly now. I'm sorry, she said to Sophia. I'm so sorry. I thought I was in love. I thought he was unhappy in a dead marriage. I didn't know he was a monster. You're not responsible for his choices, Sophia said firmly. And your testimony will help protect my daughter from a man who sees her as an inconvenience. Thank you. Revelation number 7, the financial forensics Margaret took over, pulling out a thick binder. Let's talk about what Derek has been doing with marital assets while his wife recovered from medical trauma and premature childbirth. The screen displayed bank statements, credit card reports, detailed expenditure lists. Joint account activity, past 90 days, Cartier bracelet for Vanessa, $15,000 hotel rooms at Riverside Plaza, 12 visits, $8,400 romantic dinners at upscale restaurants, $6,200 weekend trip to Napa Valley with Vanessa, $4,800 designer suit for engagement party, $3,200 engagement ring for Vanessa, $22,000 total spent on affair in 90 days, $59,600 spent on daughter Grace's needs, $0, covered by Sophia's trust. Unbeknownst to Derek, the contrast was damning. While his newborn daughter was in NICU, Margaret said coldly, Derek spent nearly $60,000 of marital assets on his mistress. He charged everything to joint credit cards that he believed Sophia couldn't track because he'd always controlled their finances. She clicked to the next slide, a comparison chart. Derek's priorities: by spending Vanessa's jewelry, $15,000 Vanessa's engagement ring, $22,000 hotel rooms for affair, $8,400 his own wardrobe, $5,300 Grace's NICU care, $0 Sophia's medical expenses, $0 Grace's nursery furniture, $0 baby supplies, $0 everything for Grace was paid by Sophia's trust, Margaret explained. The NICU bills, the pediatrician visits, the lactation consultant, the at-home nursing care when Grace came home. Derek contributed nothing while spending almost $60,000 romancing his mistress. She turned to Derek. Under California family law, dissipation of marital assets for extramarital affairs is grounds for disproportionate asset division. You spent joint funds on your mistress while neglecting your daughter's care. The court will not look kindly on this. Catherine Bennett stood again, her voice shaking. Derek Edward Bennett, is this true? Did you spend that kind of money while your daughter, my granddaughter, was fighting for her life? Derek's silence was answer enough. You disgust me, Catherine said quietly. I raised you better than this. She turned to Sophia. Whatever you need from me, testimony, documentation, support, you have it. I won't let my son destroy his family without consequences. The betrayal on Derek's face was almost satisfying. Mother, don't. Catherine's voice was ice. You threw away a wife worth $127 million. You neglected your daughter. You tried to profit from your wife's death. You're no son of mine. Revelation number 8, the custody strategy. Margaret opened another folder. Let's discuss custody arrangements. The screen showed documentation from Grace's pediatrician, NICU nurses, hospital social workers. Grace Morrison Bennett is now 3 months old, Margaret said. In those 3 months, Derek has visited his daughter in NICU 4 times, average visit, 12 minutes, visited his daughter after hospital discharge, 6 times, average visit, 22 minutes, attended pediatrician appointments, 0 participated in nighttime care, 0 changed diapers, 0 fed daughter, 0 contributed financially to daughter's care, $0. In contrast, Sophia has attended every pediatrician appointment, completed NICU parent training program, maintained 24/7 care schedule, established secure housing, separate from Derek, created $50 million trust fund for Grace's future, surrounded Grace with stable support network. Margaret looked at Derek. You're going to court Monday morning. Sophia is filing for emergency sole legal and physical custody. Based on this evidence, the medical neglect, the financial irresponsibility, the documented disinterest in parenting, and the psychological evaluation, you'll be lucky to get supervised visitation. You can't take my daughter away. Derek shouted. I'm not taking her away, Sophia said quietly. You threw her away the same day you threw me away. I'm just making it official. Revelation number 9, the criminal investigation. Detective Gonzalez stepped forward, badge out. Mr. Bennett, while you're not currently under arrest, I need to inform you that the district attorney's office is reviewing this case for possible criminal charges. Derek's face went gray. The charges under consideration include reckless endangerment, knowingly leaving a high-risk pregnant epileptic patient alone, interference with emergency services, deleting 911 communication, destruction of evidence, disposing of phone containing emergency communication, insurance fraud, taking out life insurance policy followed by suspicious delay in seeking help, financial elder abuse. If Gerald Morrison's trust documents were tampered with, still under investigation, ***, the life insurance policy is particularly concerning, Gonzalez continued. When someone takes out a large policy on their spouse and then that spouse has a convenient medical emergency that the policyholder doesn't respond to appropriately, prosecutors call that suspicious circumstances. She handed Derek a business card. You'll want to hire a criminal defense attorney. The DA will be in touch next week about a grand jury hearing. Derek stared at the card, hands shaking. I didn't try to kill anyone, he said desperately. I made mistakes, but I'm not a murderer. You're not being charged with murder, Gonzalez said. You're being investigated for reckless endangerment and fraud. But Mr. Bennett, between you and me? If your wife had died that day, you'd be facing manslaughter charges. The only reason you're not is because Eleanor Chen was paying attention. Eleanor Chen stepped forward from her position near Sophia. Young man, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her 78 years, I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 40 years. I know what childbirth complications look like. I know what seizure aftermath looks like. And I know what criminal neglect looks like. She pointed at the screen showing the timeline. You left that girl to die. You calculated how long you could wait before calling for help. And the only miscalculation you made was assuming no one would notice. I noticed. I documented. And I'll testify. Revelation number 10, the engagement. Sophia walked to where Vanessa stood, still holding the envelope with her sworn affidavit. Vanessa, why did you come to this party tonight? Derek told me. Vanessa's voice cracked. He told me he was going to propose. That we'd announce our engagement and then file for divorce next week. He said it was all arranged. Sophia turned to the crowd. That's why we're all here. Derek planned to propose to his mistress while still married to the wife he tried to let die. So, she gestured to Derek with mock graciousness. Derek, please. Don't let me stop your big moment. Derek stood frozen. No? Sophia reached into her clutch and pulled out a small velvet box. I found this in your car when I retrieved some of Grace's things you'd forgotten. Should I do the honors? She opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that had probably cost another $20,000 of marital assets. This is what you were going to give Vanessa tonight, Sophia said. Purchased with money that's legally mine, since every joint asset can be traced back to my father's trust. So technically, Derek, you were going to propose with my ring. She walked over and placed the open box on Vanessa's table. Vanessa, you can keep it if you want. Or sell it. Or throw it in the river where Derek threw my phone. I honestly don't care. But I want everyone here to understand, Derek was going to propose to his mistress while his wife was still recovering from medical trauma. While his 3-month-old daughter was still sleeping in 2-hour increments. While under investigation for medical neglect. She looked around the ballroom. This is who Derek Bennett is. He's not the successful businessman you all admire. He's not the charming colleague. He's a man who chose a party over his dying wife. Who chose jewelry for his mistress over care for his daughter. Who chose to dispose of evidence rather than call for help. Sophia's voice didn't rise, but it filled the space with absolute authority. And now everyone knows it. The collapsed Derek stood in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by recording phones and shocked faces. His mother had disowned him. His mistress had testified against him. His assets weren't assets, they were Sophia's property he'd been fraudulently using. His wife wasn't powerless, she was worth $127 million and had 3 months of comprehensive evidence against him. Criminal charges were pending. Custody battle was scheduled. His reputation was destroyed in front of 60 witnesses who were currently posting everything to social media. "This isn't over," he said desperately. "I'll fight you. I'll take you to court. We'll be in court Monday morning," Sophia said calmly. "I'm filing for emergency custody, divorce, and restraining order. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. I'll contest everything. I'll prove you manipulated your father's trust. The trust has been reviewed by 3 independent legal firms. It's unbreakable. You have no claim to any of my assets. I'll get custody. Judges favor fathers who want to be involved. You just got recorded saying babies are exhausting and you'll be more involved when Grace is interesting. No judge will give you unsupervised access after that." Derek looked around wildly, searching for support, for someone who'd defend him. He found only phones recording his destruction and faces full of disgust. "You planned this," he breathed. "All of it. The counseling, the cooperation, pretending to be weak. I documented your behavior," Sophia corrected. "You chose every action, Derek. I just made sure there was evidence." She walked closer, her voice dropping so only he could hear. "My father told me something in his letter. He said patience is the greatest weapon you'll ever have. You spent 3 months thinking I was broken while I built a case that will keep you away from my daughter for the rest of her childhood. You threw away a woman worth $127 million for a $22,000 engagement ring. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you could have had everything, but you were too cruel and too stupid to see what you had." Sophia stepped back, her voice rising to address the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending tonight. I apologize for disrupting your evening, but I thought you all deserved to know exactly who Derek Bennett is before any of you continued doing business with him." She nodded to Margaret, who began distributing folders. "These packets contain copies of all evidence presented tonight, including the life insurance policy, the cell tower data, the financial forensics, and the custody documentation. You're welcome to verify anything you've seen. It's all public record or will be once it's filed with the courts on Monday." Derek made one last desperate play. "Sophia, please. Can we talk privately? Away from all these people?" "No," Sophia said simply. "I have a restraining order being filed tomorrow. After that, all communication goes through attorneys. I'm your husband. You were my husband when you left me to die. You stopped being my husband the moment you chose a party over my life. Now you're just the man who nearly killed the mother of his child. That's all you'll ever be." Sophia turned to Margaret. "Are we done here?" "We're done." Sophia walked toward the exit, Eleanor and her legal team falling into step beside her. Behind her, Derek stood alone in the center of the ballroom as his entire world collapsed. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. And the man who thought he could delete a call for help and walk away discovered that some mistakes can never be erased.